So the president announcing a new 10-day window for Iranian peace negotiations. But this isn't just a diplomatic deadline. It could be a final ultimatum.
We estimated it would take approximately 4 to 6 weeks to achieve our mission, and we're way ahead of schedule. If you look at what we've done in terms of the destruction of that country, I mean, we're way ahead.
So can both sides come to an agreement, or are we just watching the calm right before the storm? Well, part of that storm, unfortunately, is within equity markets. You're seeing that play out a little bit. Indices are only down 1% on the day, but NASDAQ is lower, down by about 1.5%. And markets, we've talked about the NASDAQ 100, the biggest of the biggie tech stocks, now on track for correction territory. But again, markets don't matter if, again, in the long run, we think that this is temporary and that this is all going to work out. I think our question for you that maybe is different from last hour is, what is that level of patience? What is the consumer willing to do? The sentiment surveys show a little bit of softness post the war, but if consumers are still spending, do you have a leeway for another month? Where is that consumer appetite?
I think it's important to reaffirm the necessity of the action in the Middle East. I think it's really important to do that. And I think that the government could probably do a slightly better job of making sure that people understand that this is a 50-year game, not a 5-month problem. But the problem is real, and the problem is real heading into the midterms. And so I think the worry that I have right now is that the framing of it all isn't clear. We keep saying the economy's booming. Well, people still are spending. People are having good jobs and they're making more money. Well, that's factually true. Costs aren't going up. Well, that's not true. Costs are going up. And I think the quicker we are cleaner and more transparent with people, the quicker we get to the other side. I do worry that this thing's going to go on for a while and it's going to impute more costs into things, and we should just acknowledge it.
Jackie, you've often said that you would be willing, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, to eat this higher cost had you not just come off of a 25% on average price increase in the last 4 to 5 years, and that if we were willing to do this for Russia invading Ukraine, we should be willing to give the president the 4 to 6 weeks. Are we at 4 weeks now?
This is the end of week 4.
Approaching
and
week
I never
5.
heard 6. I thought he said in the beginning 4 to 5.
4 to 5. Okay. Easier said than done when, you know, and here's another thing that I'll just throw out there for you. We've had the energy shock. Maybe now we're in the rate shock. Is the growth shock next in terms of global growth? How do you think about that?
If this doesn't end next week, yes, more shocks are going to continue to come. And Taylor, the sentiment that I had expressed before about, Biden's inflation and the Ukraine-Russia war was more like, you forced me to pay for things that I don't believe in, the green agenda, all of that nonsense, handouts and everything else. I actually do believe in this and see the long-term vision. So while I was talking about, stocks being down, my 401k being down, eating into the refund that I got from the big, beautiful bill and sort of frustrating me because I feel like I'm not really getting anywhere. And I was hoping to in the second year of Donald Trump's presidency. I do kind of soothe myself when I'm looking at, when I wake up, the first thing I do is look at the futures and oil prices. And as I see the futures down and the oil price up, I'm like, okay, here we go again with the volatility today. But I tell myself that the greater good is something worth fighting for. And also that we're in it already. So you can't pull back now. Now you have to win at whatever cost, humanly possible at this point. I just don't want to see this be prolonged. I think about people who are retirement phase. So my 401k hopefully will come back when this is over. But if you need that money and you need it now and you lost 6%, that hurts. As you all know, I don't drive, but gas prices at $4. I know that hurts businesses and I know that hurts families as well, kitchen table issues. And I think about all of this stuff with sentiment, and you brought up UMich, but I think about that going into the midterms, and is that going to impact how people vote? Did the Republicans have a chance to win the midterms? I don't have a crystal ball, and will this potentially take that away? Or were they destined to lose it anyway, and so they're fighting for things they really believe in?
So I'm pulling this up because I wanted to get, Brian, the exact dates of UMich. It was maybe February 19 to March 9, but I'll confirm it. So you got
sounds right to me.
half before.
I'm really on
Brian?
the UMich dates. I want to know those UMich dates.
To half after the war. Frankly, I thought it would be worse. Consumer one-year inflation outlook, 3.8 versus 3.4.
Okay.
5-year inflation outlook, 3.2 versus 3.3. So long-term inflation expectations seem steady, even though the next year they seem to be creeping higher. What's interesting is, I think to Jackie's point, the longer this goes on, maybe the ickier it gets. Because here's just one thing that I like to sort of put oil price into perspective for me. You keep negotiating, Iran doesn't back down, we get a little 1 month ceasefire, oil goes down to 80. Or you escalate, oil goes up to 140, 150 a barrel because we're looking at land invasion, Kharg Island, all of that. Or unfortunately, you extend the deadline. So you just get a lot of this ickiness stuff with the straight close, and then you're looking at 120 to 130 a barrel. Does any of that seem interesting to you?
Not at all. I am not interested in that. I do not care about you, Mitch.
You know, I can tell.
5-year inflation.
Because you're rolling your eyes at me.
I cannot, I do not care. This all matters in the short term, okay? Look, I do not want America to become Europe. That is where my head is right now. I do not want to become Europe. And I believe that there's a contingent in this country of people in the mainstream media and the left who would love nothing more than for us to become Europe, okay? And I think Iran matters for that. I think the border mattered for that, and we dealt with that. I think our oil security matters for that. I think our education system matters for that. And I think Iran matters for that. Europe gave up on its task of defending its national security. It threw its doors wide open, and now they cannot send ships to Iran because they're afraid if they do, they're going to anger the Islamic part of their population that will riot in the streets. That is not where I want to be in this country. So is everything going perfectly, PG Keen? I have no idea. I'm not a military strategist, right? I do know that we're going after them hard. And I want to see us finish the job. And I think to worry about the midterms is misplaced. The odds on, even if we didn't go into Iran, Republicans are going to lose the midterm. Right. Because the party with the presidency loses the midterm. It's what happens. If you don't do it, you've done something historically interesting. I don't think that was going to happen anyway. So the midterms, forget it. We're playing a generational game here, and there's many pieces to it about whether we're going to turn into Europe or we're going to be the United States of America. And I want to see President Trump finish this job to defend America interests first so that when we celebrate 250 years, we're not celebrating the last of the great years on our slide to Europe, but a new inflection point to continuing to be the America that we were in the 20th century. And I think that matters more than anything for the next generation in this country. That's why I don't care about you.
That was simply outstanding. And I rarely compliment people in general, but the way you so succinctly captured it for people is what I think is missing in the messaging. You set the stakes, you accepted whatever the consequences were, and you laid down the importance of it. And I just want to, that was great.
But are we Europe? Are we already Europe in terms of we are so deeply in debt that we cannot handle financially any large unforeseen cost or economic problems, like not this war, but a super big war, one that lasts months and months and months, or a protracted recession. We have very little financial room for a large-scale crisis. Anything that interrupts economic growth, we're staring at it in the face potentially, or requires a lot more borrowing.
Particularly with the debt structure.
Right. Where we are right now, and I will just point to, this came out for the last fiscal year. We as a nation have a little more than $6 trillion in total assets against $48 trillion in liabilities.
No consumer could ever get a loan.
That does not include the off-balance sheet long-term liabilities of Social Security and Medicare. If you add those in, that you're looking at, I think it's over $88 trillion on top of that from like Social Security and Medicare that are unfunded liabilities. We are so deep in a hole, and nobody makes any effort to fix any of this. We just spend more money and expect the Federal Reserve to just sop up whatever we need to borrow.
Can two things be true at the same time? What Brian said and what you said could both be true.
I don't debate that, but I do think we are talking about a reinvention of geopolitics. And if it works, it pays dividends like the AI revolution could pay dividends. And I agree, we are fiscally profligate, but like if we don't defend our interests, then not only are we fiscally profligate, but we're sitting back waiting for China or somebody else to win. When you got a president who goes to the Panama Canal and says no more, Greenland, no more, Europe, pick up the pace, and Iran, we're not going to tolerate you for 50 years. I'm like, we don't have our fiscal house in order, but we might have our values house in order again. And I'll take that as the short-term win.
Speaking of values, House GOP leaders reject the bill that came out of the Senate to fund DHS and reopen that part of the government, extending the standoff. So
I'll challenge the values. Its priorities are right. The values are still a little off.
Okay. You're the wordsmith.
But do people understand, is
Well,
my question. I mean, I agree with you that Brian laid out an amazingly, coherent argument. I just wonder, does the average voter understand that? Or are they thinking about the kitchen table issues the way I describe them? Because those are much easier to see and feel, and that's how they vote.
I don't know. We're going to find out.
We're going to find out.
I want to pivot and quickly.